Hi and welcome to today's class. It's the 14th of May and this is class number 59. So today we're going to do an introduction to geometry. So we have some keywords here for you to take down in your copy. We have point, line, line segment, ray, collinear, and plane. So let's think a little bit about geometry. Here we have two lovely pictures. The one on the left is Newgrange in Ireland and the one on the right is Stonehenge in England. So think of ancient man-made structures such as the pyramids of Egypt, the tombs of Newgrange, Stonehenge in England and the Colosseum in Rome. All were built thousands of years ago and were designed by people who understood shapes, lines, triangles, circles and space. In a word, they were built by people who understood geometry. So around 600 BC to 100 BC, the ancient Greeks took geometry to a whole new plane. They studied it, came up with proofs, and most importantly, they wrote it down. The most famous book was called Elements, written by a very famous mathematician called Euclid. Most of his maths is still used today, just ask any architect. So our geometry course is based on his work. So geometry in short is basically where we study shapes. It's all about understanding shapes. So let's first look at points, lines, and line segments. So on the right, there are 2 points and they're labeled A and B. We usually use a capital letter to denote a point, so to name a point. There is only one straight line that passes through the points A and B. So there's only one possible line, and we call that line AB, and it goes on forever in both directions. So that's important. A line goes on forever in both directions. It's named using points that it goes through. So think of this in terms of what we're used to. We might talk about a road being the Dublin-Carlow road because Dublin and Carlow are both points on the road. Now that road could extend beyond Dublin and beyond Carlow, but that's how it's described. So the same thing happens here. Our line can be named using the points that it sits on it. We only need to have 2 points in order to name it. So we just call that AB. The arrows on both ends shows that it goes on forever. We could also call it with a single lowercase letter like L for line. M and N are also used. We sometimes see K, and it would look like this. So that's a script of an L, a lowercase L. And if you do your L's without that little curve, it can get confusing and you might think it's a 1. So that's 2 different ways in which we can name a line. So we can name it using the points on it. Think of that like our Dublin-Carlow road. Or it can have its own name like L, M, or N. That's like calling it the M7, the N7, the M9, and so on. So then we have line segments. Imagine a line beginning at A and ending at B. This is called a line segment. So the word segment you've probably heard before. We talk about maybe an orange segment, so a piece of an orange. Segment is another word for piece. So a line segment is a piece of the line. And it's the piece of the line specifically between A and B. So this is the part or piece or segment of the line between A and B. Notice that we use line segment AB, we have these square brackets that go either side, and that's nearly like the starting and the ending. Remember when we had just a line, it just said AB. So a line segment. So in this line segment, it measures 4 centimeters. So if we talk about the length of the line, instead of using the words, the length of the line segment AB is 4 centimeters, a quicker way to write that is these 2 straight lines, an AB. You'll learn that those 2 straight lines mean size. If I said to you, what's the size of the line? Really what I mean is what is the length of the line? So the length of the line segment AB equals is 4 centimeters. So this is back to, remember, mathematicians, super lazy. We love our shortcuts. So this is our shortcut, or the short way of writing the line segment length is 4 centimeters. Now I would much prefer to write that, but you need to know how to, first of all, understand it if you see it, and second of all, be able to write it if needs be. So then we have rays. So a ray is also known as a half line. And if you think about where maybe you've heard the word ray before, rays of sunshine. And they're called that because a ray starts at a point and it goes in one direction. So think of sun rays. They start at the sun and they go one direction. They don't go back into the sun. So a line that starts at A and continues through B, so it keeps going on, is called a ray. And its symbol has this square bracket at A to show that that's a start. And then B doesn't have any square bracket because it doesn't stop at B. It keeps on going. So half line is a way to remember it if you think of a half line or a ray. So then we talk about collinear points. So co means together, linear is coming from the word line. So these points, these collinear points, are points that are together on a line. So where 3 or more points lie on the same line, they're known as collinear. The reason it has to be 3 or more is if I draw 2 points, I can always draw a straight line between them. If the 3 points, so if I give you 3 points here, if 3 points are not collinear, there's A, there is B, there is C. So if 3 points are not collinear, they actually make a triangle. So if you can't draw a line that goes through all 3 points, instead you'll be able to make a triangle. Okay. So the final thing we're going to look at, and I know that's quite a lot of new terminology today, but the last piece we need is called the plane. So the plane is a flat surface where points and line are shown. My plane, if I was in the classroom, would be my whiteboard. Your plane is your copy. At the moment, my plane I'm working on is my screen. So it's a two-dimensional, just a piece of paper or place to write on where these point exists. Okay? So in the given diagram, A, B, C, D, and E are drawn on a plane of a page. Well, mine really screen. And it says C, D, and E. No, C, E, and B are collinear. Now I'm going to try draw a line, and it's freehand. So if you were doing that, you would draw it with a ruler. And it says A, B, and D are not collinear because there's no line I could draw that goes from A to B and then D, but they do make a nice little triangle. Unlike a page, a plane has no boundaries, so the page is part of a plane. So the ceiling will be a different plane. So all of these pieces, so if you had 3 different pieces of paper, they'd all be different planes.